You're listening to the Behind Ears podcast, because everybody does Disney differently. The Behind Ears podcast crew would like to thank the following sponsors for their generous support. Hey everybody, it's Mr. Chris, and I gotta tell you about Expedition Roasters. Listen, I'm a pretty big coffee drinker, just like a lot of you are, but these people have got coffee right. Their coffees are made from selectively sourced premium and specialty grade Arabica beans. They provide the absolute best flavor and aroma, and select roasts even come directly from a single estate farm for a truly perfect cup that is never bitter. They've got awesome Disney-inspired flavors such as Roundhouse Roast, Route 66, Skipper's Brew, Dark Side Roast, Redhead Rum, and one of my favorites, Bob Slitter's Brew. Listen, if you want to have the taste of Disney in every cup, give them a try today. ExpeditionRoasters.com, and Behind the Ears podcast listeners gets an extra 20% off your first order by using the coupon code EARS20. That's right, EARS20. And you can find them over at ExpeditionRoasters.com. Brew your happy place. If you have a little one and you're going to Walt Disney World, you're going to need a stroller. I'll tell you what, KingdomStrollers.com is the place where you want to look into. I'll tell you, I've destroyed my fair share of strollers while at Walt Disney World, and those things are not cheap. But getting something from KingdomStrollers.com, they'll be able to help you pick out the perfect stroller for you. And the nice part is that because they're a Disney preferred provider, they'll be able to drop it off and pick it up right from your Disney resort at no extra charge. So if you don't want to necessarily destroy your stroller in the process and you want to have a great Disney vacation with your little one, contact KingdomStrollers.com and they'll set you right up. That's KingdomStrollers.com. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Behind Ears podcast. I am your host tonight, Mr. Chris, and Uncle Danny is experiencing system problems once again. His machine, as he put it to me today, is getting worse. Now, if any of you have ever experienced computer problems, let me just tell you something. They stink. But here's the problem that even makes it worse. When you depend on the computer to run a podcast and you try to do this on a consistent basis, it really causes a problem. But that's okay. He is right now in his studio feverishly working to try to get Humpty Dumpty back together again. And taking into consideration that it took him a while to put it together in the first place, I kind of sit back and wonder what it looks like now. But, ladies and gentlemen, instead of me talking to myself for a whole hour, which, hey, I love to do, as Danny says, I can, talk the ears off an elephant. But I've got a special guest. I've got Nicole Orr here with me, and she is from Happily Ever Disney, as well as one of the wonderful people from the Indy Disney Meet, which Danny and I just came back from over this past weekend. And so, Nicole, hello and greetings and welcome back to the show.
Hi, I'm glad to be back again.
And so I'll tell you, Danny and I, we wanted to do something of a recap show and tell a little bit about what we did and, how things went for the Indy Disney Meet. We were trying to save it, for tonight. And I really honestly didn't want to wait too much longer, mainly because, let's face it, the more that you're not there, the more we're thinking about the future rather than the past. Danny and I have already started thinking about what are we going to do better next year. And so I thought, you know what, I'll bring Nicole on the show tonight and we'll talk a little bit. I got to tell you something. I hardly got to see Nicole in Indianapolis over the weekend because you were running your tail off the entire time. You coordinated darn near anything and everything that you could possibly coordinate it down there, of course, alongside of your team that was down there as well. Yeah. Boy, you really had your hands full.
Yeah, I literally had my hands full because I think I painted 400 kids' fingernails that day.
Oh my gosh. I didn't realize you were up to that.
I did. Yeah, so the last time when I went to Give Kids the World and volunteered in May, I got to volunteer in their thing that's kind of like American Idol, but for the kids to do like a talent show. And one of the things I did was I was under this tent and we did face painting and nail painting and temporary tattoos. And it was just so fun. So this year we ran into an issue with our face painter and I was like, I think we can do this. And I went out like literally like 2 days before the meet. I was like, you know what? I'm going to do nail polish just like they did. And I bought like 10 different nail polishes and I just sat there almost all day painting nails and it was a blast. I think all the little kids just loved it. So that was what I did most of the day. So I feel like I didn't get to see anyone and do anything except for the couple times that I ran through the expo real quick and checked on a couple of things. But yeah, that's what I did. So if anyone's watching and your kid came through and got their nails painted, chances are it was probably me. So we met and you didn't know it.
And you know, the interesting part to the whole thing is that I usually take some time and I stroll through the kids portion, the kids hall, to kind of see, what's going on, how much fun they're having and so on. I didn't even get a chance to do that. There were so many people through there this past year. It was amazing. Yeah. In fact, do you happen to recall like I'll call it the guesstimate, because I realized it was really hard to keep track of everybody that was there and how many were there.
So the guesstimate, as best as we can figure based on the raffle tickets that were given out to everybody, is about 1,500 guests.
Wow.
That probably does not include all the volunteers, because I know my family personally never took the time to sign in like we were supposed to, and I'm sure a lot of the expo guests and special guests didn't. But officially, guest-wise, we had just over 1,500 guests, which was approximately 500 more than the year before. So
wow. I mean, what's it next year? We're going to have it over at Lucas Oil Stadium. Is that right?
Yeah, something like that.
I mean, I know it's a great problem to have. I mean, it was, here's the thing though. There were a lot of people there. It was crowded, but it was never like,
it wasn't like 3 years ago, that time when your first time there, and we were like wall to wall people in the smaller hall.
And you only had like maybe 300 or 400 people at that. And it was still relatively cramped. Yeah. I shouldn't say crowded. It was cramped, but that was the nice part is that it never felt cramped. I always felt like I can get from one side to the other, without too much of a problem. And the thing is that not even the weather held back people. I think people came out because of the weather.
Shocked. So I had to leave at one point to go get more fried chicken. So for any of you guys that are there and you see the buffet line, there's all that fried chicken. So I had to go back and get the second round. And when I came back, it was so surreal because, I came in the parking lot like normal and I saw this massive line of people in the pouring rain walking towards the doors. And when I went to go park on the back side of the building, which is normally empty, all of the spots were filled, even the gravel parking lot. And I was shocked because they were actually willing to go out in the rain and come out and support Give Kids the World. It blew me away.
And for those of you who may not necessarily know exactly what we were talking about, Indianapolis got a ton of rain, and I'm not talking just like rain all day. We're talking downpours in buckets type of rain. In fact, my wife actually came down on Saturday morning, and the last stretch of her journey, which should only take maybe 30 minutes, took her almost an hour. And when she finally got there and saw me, she's like, honey, I was white knuckling it the entire time on 465 because there was so much rain and it was just, no one could see anything. So it was huge. And that was always one of the things that I think everybody has to worry about because, either A, you're going to get out of the house because it's raining, or B, you don't want to get out of the house because it is raining. But it was absolutely fabulous that everybody came out to see. I mean, there was a line out the door, around the corner, and it was great. And it was one of those cases where, I mean, there was still a big, long line of people to get in probably within an hour or so
Yeah.
after everything started.
We kept saying, well, at least they're Disney fans. They're used to standing in line, but that was something we've not had in that capacity before. So we've already been brainstorming. So for anyone that was there and was in line, I'm sorry. We're already pre-thinking next year and how we're going to expedite it and what we're going to change and how to make it flow better. So hopefully it won't rain again next year. And two, we can get everybody in at the beginning a lot faster.
Yeah. I mean, the good news is that I think for the past few years that I've seen, the meat team pretty much really takes feedback seriously. I mean, you guys really do look at everything that happens and try to figure out how to make it better. Last year you ran out of Dole Whip. This year, I don't think you did at all.
No, I think we had a little left over last I checked. So,
and just for the record, everybody, I only had one. I only had one Dole Whip. Yeah.
I actually had one this year. It's the first time since I've been volunteering, so the last 4 years, I actually got a Dole Whip.
No, that's great. It's fantastic. So, let's talk a little bit about some of the things that actually went on. The great part about the team that I had there, because it was not only Danny and myself, but it was my wife, Kathy. It was Jessica and Nick were also there. And they were definitely our crew. And what it allowed us to do was to basically mingle with everybody at different times. Sure, we were at our table for the vast majority of the time, but all of us were able to get up and enjoy the other exhibitors, enjoy watching different shows. It was also really cool to be able to go and look and see all the different things that the silent auction, the silent auction offerings were actually able to, bring in. And that was really super cool. In fact, for those who are watching, you may not realize that there were people from our listening audience that actually contacted us after our marathon show and said, I have some things that I would like to be able to donate and make a part of the silent auction. And I'm really happy to say that because of those donations, it did take us over the, our contribution over the $3,000 mark, which was an extra total of, I got to do some math here. I think it was like extra $360 or $370, which was really cool from people who just donated. Basically they sent me the stuff and I coordinated with Aaron and I mean that beautiful Dooney and Burke purse, and then I also coordinated with Expedition Roasters. They had their own basket, but they also gave.
Yeah, I saw that. That was awesome.
And it was a really awesome basket, and they actually. I actually offered, I told them what I was doing, and I said, just invoice me, bill me for what I owe you. And they're like, no, we believe in this cause, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to add on to your contribution. And I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding. So that's when they sent me some extra coffee, a mug, one of their cool spoons. Really, just a super, super company to work with. The thing of it is that we got to meet a lot of awesome people. And, we got to meet the gang from the WDW Reviewed podcast.
That's a great group of people. I love them.
Oh, we really enjoyed talking with them. And I met Scott from dvc-rental.com. I mean, and B also from DVC Buy and Sell. They were wonderful people to talk to, and really, it just makes awesome memories for those of us that helped out. Some of the interesting part to it also was that I don't. This is going to sound a little strange. Danny and I came in, and we ended up, just seeing where we were going to be and taking a look at all the different exhibitors. We're like, all these people are here for one reason, and that was to help give kids the world. And it was just really cool that all of us came together, even though that, also there were like, a few of us that were podcasters. There were several travel agents. Jeff Barnes was there. Lou Mangello was there. Roxy Dar was there. And actually getting to see Lou again is always a treat. I actually saw Jeff Barnes at the airport when he got off his flight. I was waiting for Danny, and next thing you know, Jeff and I were like, "Hey, I know you," in the middle of Indy's airport, and meeting Roxy Dar was a real treat.
I loved her. She was so nice. I got to sit next to her at the dinner beforehand.
Yeah, and
we just were chatting like we've been friends for years.
I had a real pleasure sitting and chatting with her. Basically after there was a brunch on Sunday morning, and we kind of closed the place as the phrase goes, and it was just so nice to sit and chat and talk to her. She is genuinely a wonderful person.
She really is, and so is her mother, who was there. It was so funny. I wanted to make a point to see part of her performance, and so I ran out and was going to record, and I got up front. And I look at the reserved seat, and there's my son sitting with her mother, and they're just chatting away. He's 10. He's sitting there just hanging out with her.
Oh my gosh!
I loved them to death. They're amazing women.
The funny part about it is that we left there saying, "Hey, hope you have a great flight," and we were joking around. We're like, "Well, maybe we'll see you at the airport," because I had to take Danny to the airport. Actually, we also said, hey, maybe we'll see you downtown, because I know that they were going to go down to downtown Indy. I almost said downtown Disney. Downtown Indy as well. So afterwards, Danny and I were thinking what we were going to do, and our usual activity that we do it was just too hot for it. So I said, hey, have you ever been to downtown Indianapolis? And he's like, no. So I said, we're going to downtown Indianapolis. He's like, okay. So we started heading down that way, and I started telling him a little bit about, the history of the city and different things. We went past the Indiana State Fairgrounds. We, kind of went on the north side there, and kind of went past IUPUI. Of course, that's, where my daughter went to school, and, kind of ended up parking just south of, the center of downtown where the fountain is. And so, first off, Danny's joking around with me. He's like, we pull into a parking spot over by Circle Center Mall. I always call it Circle Square Mall, and I don't know why.
Yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
No.
Circle Square.
Yes, it's Circle Square. So he's like, wait a second. You can park here for a half a day for $3. I'm like, yeah, on the weekend. He's like, oh my gosh. So Danny was actually freaking out over that. He thought that was funny. We didn't do a whole lot. We didn't have a whole lot of time. So I took him around over by the fountain, and we went to Rocket Fizz. And for those of you who don't know,
my son loves Rocket Fizz.
Oh my gosh. For those of you who don't know what Rocket Fizz is, basically they have several hundred different varieties of soda. Yeah. But some flavors are flavors that, are novelty at best, such as corn on the cob flavor, butter flavor, bacon flavor, and of course
Beverly sound good.
Oh yeah. Well, actually, the one that made Beverly sound good was one that was, and I kid you not, was called Barf. I should have waited until after you were done with your drink. Yeah. It was called Barf, and I'm like, I'm looking at it, I'm like, I don't really think so. And several members of the community like, did you try it? I'm like, no. I actually got myself a bottle of Diet Cheerwine, and Danny got himself a bottle of it was either, I think it was a bottle of Pepsi, but it was like the real stuff from Mexico with the honest to goodness cane sugar. Oh yeah, he was all over that. But so we walked out, and it was really getting kind of warm. So we did actually go back to Circle Center Mall just to kind of walk around a little bit. I mean, there was really not a whole lot going down. We didn't have a whole lot of time. We only had about maybe an hour and 20 minutes. So we walked around a little bit, and we went to some, I'll call it an arcade that's on the top floor of the mall. And there they had like the, kind of like an indie racing simulator type of thing, which he kicked my butt in, I'll admit it. And it was literally by like 3/100ths of a second. It was really pretty funny. And then I introduced him to hyperbowling.
I was wondering where you guys had gone to do that. Now I know.
Yeah, it was one of those things like it was really cool. And so he did not, he never did it before. So we did that. And after we did that, we started to head out and we went back to the airport. And I knew that we were going to have a little bit of extra time. Actually, the fact is we got to the Indianapolis airport a lot faster than I thought. Just because I guess you could say I miscalculated where I was inside.
Yeah, it's not too far from the center of Indy to the airport.
And I'm like, oops. So we got there, I hung out with Danny. But the funny part is we go up the escalator, and who do we see right there as you get off the escalators was Roxy. And her mom and a few other people were like, hey, how's it going? And they were getting their picture taken. They were like, hey, come over here, get your picture taken with us. Get your picture taken with us. So Danny and I would just jump into the picture, just totally randomized. I mean, I know it's a long way of getting to the end of this particular story, but it just goes to show that just how genuine these people are. It was so cool. And then, of course, I ran into B and Scott again as they were checking into their flight. And so, it was just, all of a sudden right then, about 3 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon, everybody was hovering around the Indianapolis International Airport. Easy for me to say. So, it's just really cool. And these are the kinds of things that we'll meet up with these people again. We like example, I talked with Chris of the WDW Review podcast, and we hope to do some collaboration with them in the near future as well.
Yeah, I would love to as well. I know Stacy and I have been chatting a little, getting some information back and forth because she needed some more information about the meet. And so Facebook is amazing for becoming more friends. Every time I leave the Disney meet, I've got like 20 to 30 more friends, Yeah, by the time the next meet comes around, we've like gotten to know our kids and what we like and what we do on a personal level, even though we are all over the country. It's fantastic.
Well, I mean, that's kind of how we got to know each other too. I mean, from the first time we met, so I mean, here's the thing. I talked about this before the show with Aaron a little bit, and I think it's worth saying again. And that is, I was a little nervous the first time that I went to the meet 3 years ago, or well, now three, because you could say 3 years ago. And I was nervous because I didn't really know who I was going to meet. And the cool part about it is I got to meet some really cool people that came by. Mm-hmm. I met a young lady that was in high school that actually was a part of a Disney club in her high school.
Was that this year?
Yes.
Okay, so small world, but she's one of my good friend's daughters. And I actually went and spoke and met with the Disney Club on the Friday before the Disney meet. They invited me to come talk to them. They are the sweetest people you'll ever meet in your whole life. I love them to death.
Oh my gosh, that is so cool.
She was so excited that she got to like meet you and talk with you. And
well, it was an absolute pleasure meeting and talking with both she and her mom. And I gave her a bunch of swag to pass out to her friends and so on. And it was just really cool to, be able to meet people like that. And I just think, someone like her will be an influencer, a Disney influencer to those younger people, and they will grow into adults that are Disney influencers. And I just think that's kind of really cool. And I can almost guarantee you next year we'll see them and we're like, hey, and I guess you could say I'm still floored over the love and joy that everybody had there. And everybody was in just such a great mood. Everybody was, the spirits were so high. It was just amazing. And it was one of those cases where it's like, I wish I wasn't so nervous the very first time I went. I think I'd probably,
I had the same thing. The first year I was actually invited to the meet, I didn't go. I was so nervous because I've got a little bit social anxiety. Wasn't sure who was going to be there. And it was a smaller event then. So I was like, well, am I going to have to talk to people? Am I going to have to like share personal stuff? Like, I didn't know what to do. And the first year I went, I kid you not, I took my family's magic bands and I sat at a table at the back and I customized my magic band so I wouldn't have to look or talk to anyone. But if they came up, they would ask me about my bands and then I could just talk about those. And so I didn't get up and look at the auctions. I was so nervous. By the time I went the second time, I remember people and I knew them. Now when I go, I'm like, I have to stop if I walk through and give hug after hug after hug because I've made it's like a family.
Yes.
And I'm not like exaggerating. I mean, literally, I've made a huge family with the Indy Disney Meet, not just from the volunteers, but from like you guys and the expo that I get to see. And a lot of the same guests come back year after year and we see each other and we get to catch up every year. And it's not just talking about Disney. I mean, they always want to know about your kids and, you know, how's your family doing and how are you doing? I mean, it's genuine friendships. It's fantastic.
Absolutely. And, you know, speaking of which, the interesting part is that the dinner on Friday, Danny and I, just by happenstance, we got there, we had our beverages, we put them down on a table, we walked away for a minute, came back, and sitting next to and across from me was both Lou Mangello and Jeff Barnes.
Yeah.
And Danny looked at me and was like, "Did you plan this?" I'm like, "No, I did not." And the cool part is, now we've had Lou on the show before to help us raise money as a part of our marathon show, not this past year, but the year before. And Jeff has been a recurring guest on our show as well. Love both of them. Very big fans of both of them. And the interesting part is that we actually we just had a really, really wonderful conversation with them as people, not necessarily as Disney experts, as Disney fanatics, as, you know, Disney social media personalities with big followings. We talked about a lot of different things. And I mean, everything from, you know, our families to, you know, how did we get where we are today, just in our normal lives, so to speak. And, you know, we just talked about a whole bunch of things that had nothing to do with Disney. Yeah. And it just kind of showed that the people that were there were genuine. You know, it was just fantastic. And sometimes we kind of get wrapped up in a little bit and thinking that, you know, this is our Disney family. You know, after all, we talk obviously everything Disney here. But there is a lot to each and every one of us that goes beyond Disney. And I think that's something that we now are starting to see with a lot of these other people. We're starting to get to know them in such a way where, you know, we know and understand each other better. And it's such a blessing because if you just knew the Disney side of us, you would only be seeing a small side. Mm-hmm. So, go through a couple of comments. Aaron wants to know if that's a Haunted Mansion mug.
It is. It's okay. So I bought this for my husband last trip. I went by myself because that's his favorite ride. But I love this cup, and I can't show you the inside or I'll spill it. But on the inside, after you're done drinking, it says "Hurry back." Oh,
nice!
And on the very bottom is the Haunted Mansion emblem is down there. So yeah, I love this, and it's one of the bigger mugs, so it holds a lot.
Oh gosh, that is so cool. I want to say hi to Tiffany really quick. If I'm not mistaken, we were just talking about you.
We were.
You just missed it. It was pretty funny. Well, Carol was mentioning, that's how like this podcast makes you feel like family. First off, thank you, Carol. That is exactly what we try to do here. This is just one big family, which I'm just so happy that it has grown in that way. It has grown to be one big gigantic ohana with new people showing up every single day. Let's see. Jess mentioned that she got to hang out with two of her best friends all weekend. Okay, wait a second. Yeah, you got to understand something. There was Nick, there was me, there was Danny, there was Kathy. Which were the two that were your best friends? We're going to have to find that out when I come up to Milwaukee next weekend. So, I'm just kidding. Phil, how you doing? I'm glad you can join us as well. And Tiffany's ears were burning. Were those rose gold ears like Nicole's? I just have to ask. So Nicole, we'll talk just briefly here. We're about halfway through, and I know there's a lot we could talk about the meat, but I think we ought to do just some randomness here towards the end.
Yes.
First off, do you happen to recall what the final number was for the amount of money that was raised for Give Kids the World by chance?
The last I heard was $43,000.
Oh wow, $43,000. That is a lot. That's like, what was it, like 7 or 8 more than last year?
8 families. Yeah. When I was hoping, because last year we did 25, which was like, oh my gosh, we did 25,000. And so this year I was like, well, I hope we get at least 25,000 like last year, because that would be phenomenal. When Aaron announced the amount at the meet, I literally burst into tears because it just took my breath away thinking about that. I couldn't believe that that's how much we had raised. I mean, it's amazing.
And you're saying that could possibly help out how many families?
8.
8. Okay. Wow. That's
the average cost, I believe, is $5,000 to $5,500 is what covers the expenses for a family to stay for an entire week, and that includes everything from like their food, ice cream, and their tickets to go to Disney, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's
amazing.
It was fantastic.
I've told this story before, and I'll think it's worth saying it again. I had a manager at my company who has actually been able to take advantage of the services that Give Kids the World offers, and in a real heartfelt moment. And let's face it, I don't normally talk to my management in this manner, but he basically said in a very sincere manner, he's like, Chris, I don't know what I don't know how I would have been able to do it without them. Because both of his boys have different types of needs that go above and beyond normal. And he's like, it was an absolute dream. And he goes, I am so appreciative of that. And, to hear him talk about it, and he also shared a lot of pictures with me about his trip. And he's like, I just couldn't believe it. He was really awestruck by, really about how everything went, and I just think that was pretty awesome. So I mean, that was really cool that I actually got to meet somebody that I knew, that I worked with, that actually had a direct experience with that. I think that it's pretty darn amazing. I mean, I know I keep saying that, but it actually is.
Yeah, I've met a few families over the years that have gotten to go down to Give Kids the World, and I have heard so many stories. And a lot of them will say going down to the village is kind of what the turning point was for their kid, because they were so sick, and they went down there and they got to be a kid again, and they kind of were happy and playing and laughing. And for many, that was their turning point when they started, recovery, which is amazing. And then I've heard from other families, the parents will say, and I've heard this from multiple people, say, when we're at home, you're constantly thinking about doctors and care and your child. And for 1 week, and I know that the trip is for the child mostly, it's their wish, but for that 1 week, the family gets to kind of be a normal family. They don't have to think as much about all the hectic and craziness that goes along with having a child that requires additional medical care. And I know from my experience when I got to volunteer there, I was there at a time where the families were coming in. So we were one of their first stops right after they arrived at the village, because I was in the cafe and they were just coming in to eat. And you could see a difference between when they walked in as one type of parent that was stressed, and by the time they left, they were already a little more at ease and smiling. And I mean, just to see that transformation just in a few minutes of being in the village, it was amazing. It made me want to go back. I almost canceled my entire trip to Florida and Disney. I was like, I should have just volunteered every day of my trip instead. So I'm very much looking forward to going back. I highly suggest, if anyone has a means to go down to Kissimmee, or if you want to tack on a day or two of your Disney trip, call them up. It's so easy to volunteer. They rely on volunteers, and it's an amazing thing. You'll never forget.
I say this with the utmost of love and respect, of course. The fact of the matter is that I think sometimes we take that for granted. Mm-hmm. I mean, the fact is there's a lot of us who, let's face it, go to Disney multiple times a year. There are some of us that actually, they're not even done with it. They haven't arrived for their first trip and they're already planning, got their second trip already planned. Yeah. And things like that. And these are families that don't necessarily have that luxury. I think it's one of those cases where it's like, and again, I don't know if I'm going to say something that is going to be misconstrued, so I'm being kind of cautious in how I word this. I think it is absolutely fabulous to be able to take some time out and make some magic in someone else's life. And even if you don't give a dime and you take some time out to go and you volunteer and to be a part of the magical experience down there, you may not necessarily be in the Magic Kingdom, but you are making their kingdom magical. And that is something to be said. Because you know what? Let's face it. Sometimes, I mean, they do need our financial support. There's no doubt about it. But sometimes the smiles on our faces radiates to a point where it puts smiles on their faces too.
Absolutely.
And they need people to do that. You can't do that with a dollar bill. You got to do that with a person. A person has to do that and be willing to give of themselves. And, it's just one of those things that I'm trying to figure out how to do just that. It's something that haven't really had too many conversations about our next trip, but we are driving down next time. And there are times where we are fortunate enough to add on an extra day or two, mid-trip because of, scheduling or what have you. And so who knows? Who knows what might happen? But I totally agree with you, Nicole. If someone is able to take time and volunteer and to coordinate it with them, you do have to coordinate it with beforehand, right? So they know that you're coming down.
Right. It's actually a lot easier thought. You can go on their website and you just scroll through or do a search for volunteer, and there is a link you click, and it just will submit a form saying, "Hey, I'd like to volunteer." And then they'll ask you, "Are you local? Do you want to volunteer a lot? Or are you just traveling in? You want to do it for a day?" And one of their volunteer coordinators will contact you. For me, they emailed me and got a hold of me and asked, when are you coming? What times could you be here? What would you like to do? And figured it out. And I showed up, and they said, "This is where you go." And I got to look around. I mean, it was very, very smooth. You know, it was very easy. You could tell they're very used to doing that. So I think of all the places that I've volunteered over the years, which is a lot, it was probably one of the easiest things to do. And I walked in, I was like, I'm not going to know what to do. Like, they're like, here, volunteer. And I'm like, and within 5 minutes, I knew exactly what I was supposed to do and could run the whole, you know, what I was supposed to do for my shift in each place.
Sweet.
They're amazing.
Well, I actually posted up here, Monica mentioned, hey, can you post information as to whom we can contact to volunteer? Monica, I'll tell you what I'll do. After the show, I'll make sure it's posted at both the Behind the Ears podcast Facebook page as well as the WDW community Facebook page. And that way, it'll give everybody a little bit of a guide. I'll be doing that shortly after the show. And for those of you who are listening to this, either via replay or via podcast, that will also be the place that you can go ahead and snag that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll basically be posting the website for that as well. And if I can post a direct link as to right to go where to volunteer, I will certainly do that. So, you know, that's pretty cool. And I'm hoping that people, you know, I've seen people are already very interested in doing that sort of thing. I hope you guys do take that into consideration. You can have, I've been doing volunteer work in one way, shape, or form most of my life. And sometimes you say to yourself, why do I do this? But, you know, afterwards you say, wow, this is why I do this. And it almost sounds like I wouldn't even have that initial reaction sometimes to see the joy in someone's face. Just, I think is, you know, it fills your heart up. And
it really does.
You know, I just think that's really cool. Well, I'll tell you what, this is what I would like to do. Got a few minutes left. And I think I would love to take some questions. From our viewing audience. But in the meantime, before I can actually see the questions, I'd like to know if you have any last comments in regards to your, I'll say observations from the meet, or any good news from the meet, or anything else like that, or what we, you know, might even be able to look forward to next year.
Well, I do know that the tentative date for next year is September 21st. If you want to mark your calendars. Oh, we got a visitor again. So just a little bit different than usual because it's usually at the end of August. But D23 happens to be next year.
Yep. So
we're pre-thinking that and school calendars and other events and stuff. So right now, September 21st is what we are hoping for. So you can mark that down. We're fairly certain that, you know, unless there's some kind of weird technical or logistical issue, that should be the date next year. And you can follow Indy Disney Meet on Facebook. You can check us out on our website. It's a little bit weird. If you do a Google search for Indy Disney Meet, you'll find us if you can't remember. But it's www.mwfk.org. That stands for Magical Wishes for Kids, which is our official nonprofit name.
If I could actually type, I could actually show it on the screen, and voila, there we go. MWFK, Magical Wishes for Kids.org. So cool. Most excellent. Well, Nicole, I think for the next few minutes here, as I wait for some people to bounce a question or three in the comment section. If you have a question for either Nicole or myself, or both of us for that matter, feel free to drop it in the comment section, and we'll see what it is. So I've got a question for you, Nicole, kind of going a little bit off topic along this thing. You know that we talk a lot about food.
Yes.
I mean, come on, let's face it. I mean, as
That's
we
the whole
said,
reason why I go to Disney.
yeah. See, okay, good. It's the only reason why you go to Disney, and it's just one of those cases.
Yeah, I came for the food.
You go there for the food. Your favorite snack?
Ooh, oh gosh. If I have to pick just one, and I'm only going to eat one my entire trip, I'm probably going to get a caramel apple, but it has to be from the Germany Pavilion in Epcot because they taste better than all the other caramel apples in the park.
My wife got one, not this past summer, but the summer before. And people don't realize they'll cut it for you.
They will. I prefer to eat it whole. My husband always, he's like, why didn't you get him to cut it? I'm like, I like to eat it on the stick. It's the whole experience where it gets like up your nose. And it's on your cheeks and everyone's staring at you and you're trying to fit it in your mouth.
Yeah, speaking of that place, though, I actually got a small bag of caramel corn. Now, I will admit, I was looking forward to, some, a small bit of crunchy caramel corn. Oh, no.
No.
It was one of those cases I was like, oh, you got to be kidding. It was chewy. So I tossed a whole bunch in my mouth at one time. All of a sudden, I'm like, oh, this is a problem.
How long was it before you could breathe or speak or?
Oh, it was a good 5-7 minutes. I couldn't arm rug, and of course I'm so saliva's building up in my mouth at the same time, and I'm like, my wife's like, "Are you okay?" Yeah, I'm fine.
You know what they used to have that was my favorite, and they didn't have it last time when I don't know if it was just because they were out or they don't care. They used to have bacon caramel chocolate squares. It was just a huge chunk of caramel coated in chocolate, and it had chunks of big candied bacon sticking out of it. It was so good.
Oh, I was gonna say, really?
It was you would think like not so sure. It was probably one of the most delicious things I've ever had. So ever since then, now whenever we make any like chocolate cupcakes or anything, I'm like, do we have any bacon?
Oh my god!
So I put bacon bits, not like the crappy kind, but like the real bacon.
Yeah.
Like on my donuts, on my cupcakes, everything.
See, the funny part is that at the Food and Wine Festival, it probably has to be 3 or 4 years now. They had a maple bacon cupcake.
Let's see, that sounds good.
And
I don't like bacon.
It wasn't.
No?
We all took a bite of it, and it was like,
was the bacon mixed in?
No,
or was it on top?
There was some bacon mixed in, like in the cupcake itself.
Yeah, I can see why that would be good.
And then they had like bacon sprinkled, like real bacon sprinkled on top of, the frosting, which basically tasted like maple syrup, except very sickening sweet maple syrup.
Oh.
We both did. We bought one for the three of us. We took a few bites. We all kind of looked at each other and said, "No, not feeling the love."
Yeah,
no, not feeling the love. So,
oh, that's a shame.
But of course, I have to answer the question too. I really, honestly think I haven't been able to do this as much as I have in the past, but always and forever, Mickey Premium Ice Cream Bar is my go-to snack, and you start it with the ears. I don't care what you say.
See, my kids, like, I'm weird. I don't get Dole Whips, and I don't get the Mickey ice cream bars or the ice cream sandwiches or any of the like normal snacks. I'm the weirdo who's like, is there like a cheese board or charcuterie? And that's like, I love that kind of stuff. Like Sleepy Hollow used to serve soup, and that was my go-to breakfast at Magic Kingdom for the longest time. It was a thing of soup and funnel cake. It was the best combination of sweet and salty.
Soup and funnel cake?
I think I was the only one getting it because it's not there anymore.
Soup and funnel cake. Oh, and you got to wash it down with a Diet Coke. Wow, soup and wait, what kind of soup?
Well, it depends. Sometimes it was like tomato, which is okay, but usually it was like a chicken and wild rice, creamy, just soup. And it was just good and hearty. So I would eat that first to get like, you know, protein and substantial stuff. And then I would go and have my funnel cake for dessert.
Oh, wow. I mean,
I know. I'm bizarre.
I don't know if I would do that, but you know.
But you can only get soup early in the morning in Florida because anytime after 10 a.m., you're just dying of heat.
You know, although, where did I go? I can't remember where I was, and I ended up getting a bowl of soup for lunch one time, and it was really, really, good. Goodness gracious, I know it was really good, but I can't remember what I got. But yeah,
you know where you could get the best soups though at Disney. If anyone's watching and they're like they're like me and they just like soup. If you go to Boma for like dinner,
oh yeah,
because they have so many, and they're like, they're so delicious. I almost made myself sick trying to eat them all because they have like the butternut squash and they have like all the different ones, and I was just like bowl after bowl after bowl of soup, and then zebra domes.
Oh yeah. Well, you know, the interesting part about Boma, I mean, I think it's a little underrated because people don't know how to do a Boma buffet properly. Because you go there and you take little samples of everything. And then you go back and you say, I want this. You know.
I usually go up and I'll get 2 plates because I'm a pig. And I will put like the tiniest little spoonful dollops of like not even a whole bite's worth of just about everything on the buffet. And then I'll just be like, okay, I need more of that and I need more of that.
I've done it. And, you know, the thing is that the chefs there are so nice because if you want to,
they're phenomenal.
If you want to know what's in something or like how something is made, or especially if you have allergies or sensitivities to things, they are back there, and all you got to do is, you know, excuse me, I got a quick question, and be really nice about it. And they're like, oh yeah, well, you know, they'll tell you, they'll tell you the recipe, they'll tell you this has this is that, or even if, you know, if they happen to know like what kind of thing inspired that particular dish, you know, they'll tell you. And you know, the thing is, I like them for both breakfast and dinner. To be honest with you,
I haven't done breakfast yet. Everyone keeps saying I have to do it, and so every trip I'm like, we're going to go. And then something happens because I'm not the best morning person. I was a much better morning person on my solar trip than I was on trips when I have to get 5 kids ready and out the door.
There you go. And for me, I mean, they had like a, I want to say it was like a curry, like a curry infused corned beef hash. Dude, oh, so good.
That sounds delicious.
It was. And, you know, the thing is that, I mean, I'm a big breakfast fan, and I really liked it. And the dinner, my son is not usually a big adventurous eater. Either is my wife, but she'll still find a lot of things. I do like what you did with the soups. You know, get a little bit of soup, then you get a little some naan bread and stuff like that.
Yes.
But really, gosh, now I'm hungry. Now I'm getting hungry again. God, why do we keep doing this to ourselves? Gotta stop this. I want to just read
If anyone wants to know what Disney bloggers and podcasters do after something like this, we wait till no one's looking and we get all the food in the house we can find and we sit in bed and we just eat and eat and eat.
I guarantee you, I'm going downstairs after this and I'm breaking out the leftover taco meat from Taco Tuesday, and I'm making myself a big old taco. And yeah, this is one of those things. I'm going to read off a few comments here really quick. Monica mentions, my Disney vacation officially feels like it's begun when I have my Mickey ice cream bar. I totally agree. In fact, it would be, you know what? They should just basically hand those out before you get on to Disney's Magical Express. That's just my 2 cents.
Now, see, I would eat one if that were the case.
I just need
someone just handed me one and be like, sure.
Yeah. Either that or the ice cream sandwich is a very close second. Bailey actually mentions literally what I do. I take samples of everything, and whatever I like, I'll get more of, referring to Boma. Let's see. Carol mentions, on the Disney cruise, the servers would bring the kids Mickey's bar with sprinkles. And on the last day, they brought 2 for each grandchild. Carol, a little tidbit. My wife, I kid you not, she's during one of our first cruises, she's like, all I really want is a Mickey ice cream bar. And the server looks at her and says, not a problem. And she's like, what? He's like, I'm going to take care of you. And sure enough, he brings back a Mickey ice cream bar, drizzled in chocolate and sprinkles with just a little dollop of whipped cream on the ears type of thing.
I swear, Disney cast members, when it comes to food, you say anything, they will make it happen. I remember once when our daughter was like, I think she was only like 1 on the trip, turning 2. And we were joking, oh, she doesn't eat anything except for shredded cheese and croutons. And next thing I know, the server brings out a big giant bowl of shredded cheese and a bowl of croutons.
There you go.
I was like, where did you even get this?
That's absolutely hilarious. That's funny. I mean, yeah. Seriously, here's the key part. You want to know what the key is, in my opinion? Just be nice.
Yeah.
Just be nice, and they will completely.
Yeah.
Let's see. Mary also mentions, first of all, Bailey is really liking Boma breakfast. Mary mentions they have a bread pudding for breakfast, and cinnamon and vanilla sauce is so good. Oh gosh, that really does sound good. Carol mentions Tonga toast. Absolutely. Jessica mentions, Chris, we talked about avoiding carbs like a few hours ago, and now you're talking about a bread service.
Carbs don't count at Disney.
Yeah, I wish that was the case.
You're walking like 10, 12 miles a day. And you got to carb up, right?
Oh, I wish that was really the case. But Mike is actually switching gears on us here a little bit, and okay. I think this will be our last question of the night. Mike asks, will we ever get a nighttime parade again? What do you think?
I sure hope so. I mean, all the other parks have them.
Yeah, I just think they're in the process of reimagining something, and
they're doing something, and they won't say anything. They keep saying, "Oh, that'd be wonderful." It's very
deep down inside.
They like to answer questions without answering anything.
No, some people like to answer the question with a question. Would you like something like that? Is that something that you're interested in? Yep, I will.
Have you seen the one at Disneyland? Isn't that spectacular? Yes, we want some too.
I said this before when the parade left, and I'll say it again. I truly believe that we're going to see a new nighttime parade eventually. I also truly believe that I am betting that some of the technology that was used for Paint the Night over at Disneyland is going to be incorporated in such a new parade.
I think so too. But they can get away without a nighttime parade temporarily because they've got the Halloween parades and the Christmas parades through the parties. And then everyone's going to be geared up and focused on Star Wars. So I almost wonder if they're putting things off for, the big anniversary years.
It's a very distinct possibility. And, the fact of the matter is that with all the different things that are new and going on, they kind of have to pace themselves a little bit.
Yeah.
They have to, because the next thing that's going to come on in the beginning part of next year is, the new Mickey and Minnie themed ride that is now going to be taking place over at the Great Movie Ride Pavilion, so to speak. And then, end of next year, and I am purposely putting it like that, end of next year, Galaxy's Edge is going to become a reality. I just think that we'll have to just absorb it and see how it goes and take it one step at a time.
Yeah. It's not like we're all going to stop going because there's no nighttime parade.
Oh yeah. I mean, quite honestly, it's actually worked out pretty well. In the sense of just scheduling things. Aaron did actually mention that the next D23 will have a ton of announcements. Totally agree. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised, and this is just my 2 cents, I know nothing, that D23 next year is going to basically outline what is going to be going on through the anniversary, if not beyond.
I totally agree.
So I think it's going to be an extraordinarily big deal. obviously D23 is when they give out a lot of really good pieces of info. Anyway, I just think that we're going to have to be patient, so we'll have to see how it goes. Well, Nicole, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up here. Where can people find your social media outlets?
So if you go on Facebook, it's Happily Ever Disney. If you go on YouTube, it's Happily Ever Disney. If you go on Pinterest, it's Happily Ever Disney. But if you go on Twitter, it's just Happily Disney.
Because Twitter, they're pesky. They're pesky.
I know, it
thing,
won't all fit. But I'm most active on Facebook. That's where I post almost all my updates and any news, things that come out, and I want to get it out to everybody. And I'm slowly adding more and more content to my YouTube channel, which is fun. A lot of point of views and things like that. So.
Most excellent. Okay. Nicole, thank you so much for being here. Really super appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and press this button right here.
You heard the show, and we hope you want more. Well, feel free to join us over at our social media platforms. Instagram and our Facebook page can be found at Behind the Ears Podcast. Our webpage is behindtheearspodcast.net, and our email is behindtheearspodcast@gmail.com. And our Twitter handle is @BehindTheEarsPC. And come and join the conversation about all things Disney over at the WDW community page. Don't forget to rate and review the show over at iTunes or Apple Podcasts, as it really helps us get the word out about the show. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the show on iTunes or Apple Podcasts or the Podbean app. Also, you can listen to us on Stitcher Radio, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, and via Alexa and Google Home.
And once again, thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. And also thanks to special guest Nicole Orr of Happily Ever Disney and the Indy Disney Meet for joining me on very short notice. And I am sure that Uncle Danny is going to basically work as much as he possibly can over this holiday weekend so that by the time next Tuesday comes, he will be back on the air. I know it's frustrating for him, and it's just one of those things that, well, sometimes we just have to deal with it. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us tonight, and we all hope you have a fabulous day. Take care.